Good evening at 6 p.m. The best variety of gospel use of knowledge is power broadcast with Dr. Marseille Wells-Strozier. Information on how to reach Chia will follow today's broadcast. And now, here's your host.
In the studio with me, Al. How are you today?
I am truly blessed. How are you doing?
I am doing great. How's your work week going so far?
Oh, fantastic.
Wonderful. Now, a person that we don't have on camera, and we can't see him. Hi, Paul. How you doing?
Wonderful.
Great.
Wonderful.
Great. I'm always glad to have you here. Tonight we have an exciting topic to talk about. We're going to be talking about retraining adult learners for the day's challenges. And listeners, if you're interested in being a caller to participate in this conversation, please give us a call at 810-239-5733. Again, the number is 810-239-5733. Al.
Yes.
I'm going to give you some statistics on adult literacy.
Okay.
And first, let me define literacy for you.
Okay.
Literacy is the ability to read and write.
Okay.
That is what the dictionary tells me. That is the definition for literacy.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. literacy rate, according to a study conducted by the United States Department of Education and the National Institute of Literacy, April 2017, 32 million adults in the United States cannot read, which is 14% of the U.S. population in 2017. 21% of U.S. adults read below the 5th grade level. 19% of high school graduates cannot read. Pro-Literacy is another organization that conducted a study, and they states children of parents with low literacy skills have a 72% chance of being at the lowest reading levels themselves. Adults with the lowest literacy level lives 43%, they're 43% of the poverty rate here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
In excess of $230 billion a year is spent on health care because of people with low literacy rates.
All right.
1 in 6 young adults drop out of high school. 50% of 2 million immigrants who come to the United States each year lack a high school diploma and they cannot speak good English. 75% of state prison inmates do not complete a high school diploma, and they can be classified as low literacy. Now, we have a problem here just in the city of Flint.
Right.
And the city of Flint that I'm going to talk about is the North Flint. North Flint is considered the zip codes at 48504, 485, and 48506. This comes from the Ruth Mott Foundation study that was conducted in 2015. 42% of North Flint adults over the age of 25 do not hold a high school diploma nor a GED.
Wow.
34.9% had some college credits, but not a college degree. That was even just an associate's degree,
Right.
not let alone a bachelor's degree. 27.2% are unemployed. 42.7% lives at the poverty rate. And the median income household is $23,580. So what we're going to talk about tonight with our wonderful guest is retraining adult learners for today's challenges. Because as you can tell, the Department of Education at the government level, other organizations are doing literacy studies. They're seeing that we're having a problem that a lot of us educators have always known.
Right.
But at least now they're doing something. I can say at least that amount. But not enough is being done.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have a lot of grassroots organizations that have been in the trenches for years trying to help adults increase their literacy rate in order for them to be more effective adults and for them to be better parents. So tonight we have a soldier who has been serving on the front lines, helping adults learn how to read and write. Adult literacy has been the calling for Debbie Springer for the past 25 years. She has helped to develop adult learning programs for different agencies in Flint.
Currently, Debbie volunteers as adult literacy tutor for individuals with mental and learning disabilities. In addition, Debbie is a certified volunteer tutor trainer, a peer tutor trainer for Mott Community College, and a volunteer tutor trainer for agencies who utilize volunteers to deliver instruction. Debbie, I want to say welcome.
Thank you.
I've known Debbie for since 2005, 2006, the max, I think, 2006.
Right.
And I was teaching teaching adult literacy for another program, and I found that I had some adults who should not have been in the program because we did not provide the academic level that they needed. And so I was on a quest to try to find a literacy program that could help serve these adults who are reading at the 0 through 4th grade level. And so I came across Debbie Springer, who at that time was working for
Christ
Enrichment Center. And she has the expertise, the knowledge, and been teaching way more longer than I have to work with adults in basic literacy programs. So I want to say, Debbie, I thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
I appreciate you for being here. I am so happy for the friendship that we've had over the years, and I really, really do appreciate what you do for the community. So, Debbie, let's get into this conversation.
Okay.
And I don't know where I want to start. There's so much to talk about. What general educational barriers do adults over the age of 30 have today?
There's quite a few of them, actually. Social and cultural barriers.
Okay.
Social barriers are peer pressure, friends who don't want to be supportive of someone who is a low-level reader, or embarrassment with their peers because they don't want their peers to know they can't read.
That's true.
That's a major barrier. Family background. Sometimes you get a family that has the grandparents who can't read, the mothers can't read, the children can't read. So it's a big vicious cycle. And how to break that cycle is one of the most difficult things that we find over the years that we've tried to do. Mothers without any education will have children with low-level readers.
That's true.
And so, because parents are the main force of their children at the very beginning, and if the parent doesn't meet a standard of reading, the child's going to have problems.
That is true. That is true.
Another barrier is personal barriers, transportation, time off work for learning, disabilities. A lot of them have learning disabilities, mental disabilities, which, if they're on medication, will hinder their process of learning.
That is true.
Child care, financial costs, their age. If somebody's over the age of 50, they think, oh, I'm too old to learn, which isn't true. I've had students who are 82 years old. So, age shouldn't matter, but it does to some people.
That is true.
Language is a big barrier, especially people who are new to the United States that don't know the language. And lack of information on where they can get help.
Yes.
That's one major barrier.
I want to go back to something that you stated, and Al, I'm going to have you in this conversation a lot because if you haven't been an adult education instructor, people wouldn't believe the things that we're talking about. You would never believe until you're actually there. But Debbie stated something that they are ashamed that someone knows that they're trying to go to school.
Right.
And the peer pressure.
I know when I was coming into radio, right, my main thing was reading, okay? And I used to fumble. I still do sometimes. Right?
I do too, so
right?
yeah.
But I was real bad when I was down in Florida. And I used to fumble over these PSAs,
Okay.
And it sounds so unprofessional, real bad. So I knew that I had to learn how to read the prop that I'm doing, right? The promo.
Right.
And so they taught me it. A guy named Larry Steele, you know, taught me how to read that PSA without, because it got commas, it got periods.
Oh yeah, those mean something.
And it means
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you and then know how to pronunciate these words more sufficient. Like me myself now, you know, I was sitting up here reading this this promo here, right? And oh man, it's the way that she got it written, right? But it's like I'm reading it, but it's like it's all in one.
Okay.
Okay. So then I see where what it says, so I know. Okay, I know how to do this, right? Now I do fumble, you know. I fumble a lot on the air here, you know, and then I, you know, sometimes it's my glasses. I see stuff and I don't see.
Oh,
you know
yeah, that is true. That is true. We're listeners, we're talking about adults over the age of 25 tonight. And really, we're talking about 30 and over. And honestly, we can get down to 40 and over. I have experienced a lot, basically men, not so much women, still have that peer pressure issue. When they're trying, you can help me on this one.
Oh, yes,
they have that peer pressure issue when they're trying to do something better than what the crowd is doing.
Right.
And what's disheartening is that now I can share this experience with a person that was in their 50s heading on 60. Now, for me to be younger than I'm like thinking, well, I mean, after all these years, you should see how important a GED is.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they lack emotional barriers.
And the support, yes.
And the support. The emotional barriers is a big issue because a lot of people who are low-level readers don't have that self-confidence.
That's true.
Right.
They don't have self-esteem. They've experienced so much negative feelings during their learning years, negative in school. If they failed in school, they're going to fail when they go to try to learn more. And so you get a lot of those issues when you get a new student. I've had students that wouldn't even look at me when I'm trying to do an evaluation or try to talk to them because their self-esteem is so low.
Yes, I get that. When you do the placement tests and you determine how you're going to place them academically, that very first day, number one, that's if they show up.
Okay.
Right.
That's if they show up the first day of class. Again, we're talking about people who are parents, grandparents, and some are great-grandparents.
Right.
And so that first day, they may not come. So, you know, you work with them a little bit in order to, you know, not be so hard on them in the beginning because they are afraid because someone knows their barrier.
Right.
And now they have to expose themselves now. So now they're going to have to do some work.
But how do you work with a person that's got their initiative is not high enough for them to actually perform to where they want to go? You know,
a lot of times when I meet with a new student, one of the first things they say is, I was in special ed.
Okay.
And my thing is, well, let's go on and see what we're doing today.
Okay.
They use the special ed term because that's what they were taught to use.
Okay.
And I try to say, okay, so you were in special ed back then. Now we're going to work and we're going to see how well you can do.
Okay.
Forget the whole special ed deal.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to see right now what you can do. And a lot of times I find that I discover learning disabilities that they didn't know they had.
That's true.
And so you have to do a lot of encouraging.
That you do.
You have to continue to say you're doing well. When we're doing it, first I do a vocabulary to find out what level to put them in. And if they pronounce the word that normally are very difficult to pronounce, I go, yeah, that's really great.
Okay.
You've done a really wonderful job.
Yeah.
So you have to continue, even at the very beginning, to encourage them.
For me, what I do when I first get you as a student,
Right.
I tell you what you did good first.
Okay.
As soon as you come in the door, I tell staff, you know, even though a student may not be your assigned student,
Okay.
they're still our students.
Right.
So you speak to everyone. We don't talk about anything negative. I don't want to hear about anything that happened on the street
Positive
unless
stuff
you can
all the
turn
time.
it into a lesson.
Right.
If you can turn around and make something in the street into a lesson, which they call it constructivism,
Right.
then you can talk about that. But we don't bring anything negative from the outside into the classroom
Right.
if it's not supporting anything.
Okay.
So like I have my youngest student right now is 27 years of age.
Okay.
2 weeks ago, I could tell you my youngest was 45. But Monday, my youngest became a 27-year-old. And for the first 2 days, because today is the third day, she was late to class. She almost didn't make it the first day, but we got it worked out. I let her come late. You know, I let her come late to just encourage her to come. Now, once she starts coming on a regular basis, I'm going to have to lay down the attendance policy. But I need her to get comfortable. So yesterday when she came late. And I said, the first thing I want to tell you is thank you for calling me to let me know you were late. And I said, the second thing I want to tell you is I'm glad to see you. And that's before she came in the building. That was just greeting her at the door. And so that changed her whole entire demeanor about coming to class. That today she was supposed to have a later session, but because her doctor's appointment was canceled, she called and asked me, could she come in early? I said, you surely can come in early.
Right, yeah.
So like Debbie said, we may be working with adults physically, mentally, and academically. We're not working with an adult. And I think sometimes this is the problem that we're having in adult education when people aren't properly trained to work
Right.
with adults.
Right.
They're thinking that where you're an adult, you're supposed to know how to add decimals. No. When you do a placement test, and the placement test says that they're first grade in math, you're working with that second grader within that adult.
Right.
So therefore, you're not really working with the adult. You have to respect that individual as adult, but academically, you're working with a second grader. And that takes some experience, and that takes years to develop, to be able to deliver a lesson. Just like with my 27-year-old today, I told her, when your children have homework, you do your homework with your children.
Right.
And I actually told this to another one of my students, and she went to a teacher-parent conference, and she told this to this teacher. The teacher told her, you don't do nothing like that. That's embarrassing. And
That's not.
it's not embarrassing.
I have found other students, quite a few students that I've had, who once they start coming, they'll say, oh, well, I do my homework and my child is sitting right there. And I've had them bring their kids in. And one little girl actually said to me, you know what, my mommy's learning, and that makes me want to learn.
Yes, because the child becomes the teacher, because a lot of the students that we're working with, the parents are at the same or below the level that their child is at in the school system. So you're killing 2 or 3 birds at the same
time, right.
at the same time. So when you're sitting at the table, especially if you're a single mom,
Right.
when you're sitting at the table, you're doing your homework, helping your children with their homework, and they're helping you. Because if you don't understand what you're doing, you can't call a teacher and say, well, I don't understand this. Most of the time, your children are doing the same identical grade level work as you're doing if you're in an adult basic education program. It depends on what institution or what academic program you go through. My adult basic education program at Chia Adult Skills Center is 0 to 4th grade. In some organizations, it's 0 through 7th grade. So for me, that's junior high. When you get to junior high, is 5th to 8th grade at Chia for me.
Right.
But adult basic ed is 0 through 4th grade level. So if you have a 6-year-old child, if you have a 10-year-old child, if 12 years of age is 6th grade, so they even doing higher work than you're doing. So those are your teachers, and I told my student today is, even if you don't know how to multiply and divide, your kids don't have to know that if you make it out to a game. And organizations that make a lot of the tools that we use for adult basic education, some of it's kind of hard to get. the easiest thing is go to the dollar store or somewhere and buy what you need.
Right.
Now, we may have Disney characters on it because they're not expecting for you to use it for adults, but make it work. And I was showing her how to go buy these flashcards and how to make a game out of it with her children, without them even knowing she doesn't know how to divide. I say, you play dumb.
Yeah, that's what we. I had a mother who had children 3, 4 years old, and she couldn't do the alphabet.
Yes.
So we made flashcards, and I said, now we're going to take the flashcards home and hold the flashcards up for your kids to do.
That's true.
So that you are learning, the kids are learning, and the kids don't know.
That's true.
That she's learning at the same time.
At the same time.
Right.
And the kids are having a blast, and it brings the bonding
It
to
really
the parents,
does.
but
Right.
closer. And sometimes that's what's needed.
That is true.
Because some parents have problems with bonding, and when they go into a learning process and they help their children along with this learning process, like with the flashcards, it's very simple. But it also gives them that bonding.
It does, and you're able to ask your child questions
Right.
about what's been going on without them even knowing that they're giving you these answers.
Right.
Right.
You know,
Enjoy it.
but Debbie said something that is very true. We do have adults who don't know their ABCs. And one of the things that we Americans do, we sing our ABCs.
Right.
Adults get confused with LMNOP. LMNOP.
Yeah. Yes, they do.
LMNOP.
Yeah, let 'em know.
And I actually stopped one of my students. He was another 50-something-year-old. And I said, say that again. And he said, I said, no, slow down and say it again. And so I corrected him. He got upset. Men in adult ed are some of the most difficult ones to work with.
Yes, they are.
Because I find they may have some issues with their mothers or a woman that's in charge, you know.
They don't want to take rules.
They don't want a woman tell them something. You know, I do find that I lose more men in the summertime. I always say that the streets are calling them. I lose more men in the summertime as well. But he got upset because I told him he wasn't correct in saying those ABCs. So I don't argue with students. So what I did was I told him to pull out his ABC sheet. And I told him put his finger on those letters and tell me what those letters are. And then he backed down. Yeah, men are difficult to work with.
Yeah, I've had students tell me, men, they come in and say, oh, well, you're going to teach me this and this and this. And I'm going, wait a minute. First of all, you have to learn how to multiply and divide before you can do fractions.
That's true.
Well, I need to know how to do fractions. Well, yeah, but you don't know how to multiply and divide.
Yeah.
And so they want to jump. And I always tell the students, when I start them on what they know. And then we build up to what they don't know.
Okay.
Because they feel comfortable at the spot that they know.
Okay.
And then as they go along, then they realize that they're learning.
That's different because I do the opposite. I don't spend time on what they know. I work on what they don't know.
But see, because I work with a lot of mental
that makes the difference.
and disabled people, and you don't want to discourage them. So that's why I start them with what they know, and maybe for the first week.
Okay.
And then we move on to a little more what they don't know.
Gotcha.
But it gets them comfortable first. It encourages them to come back.
Okay.
And because with mental and disabled people, a lot of them have medications, and that medication interferes with the learning process. So you have to learn how to work around all those medications, and sometimes you repeat and repeat
over and over again. There's a form that we use. It's called the Adult Learning Plan, and we ask, you know, do you have any doctor documented, not nothing they say it is, but do they have a doctor documented mental illness or physical disability? And I always ask, are you taking prescription medication? For the same reason that you're saying. One, because we work with older adults. So therefore, if something happens to them medical-wise, on their emergency form, I also ask, what type of medication they take, and do they have any allergies? Who is their doctor, and the contact information.
Yeah.
So if I ever need to call the paramedics, I have that information. But when I ask what type of medication you're taking, if you are a diabetic, and I know that you're taking medication and you're supposed to eat, I want to know those things, because I want to encourage you to make sure that you are ready for class by eating like you're supposed to.
Right.
If you bipolar, have you taken the medicine? What are your triggers? Because I want to make sure I don't trigger you. In the classroom, and so these are things, like you're saying, that you have to be properly trained to work with people. And this is all the things we have to collect and understand before we can even deliver a lesson, is to understand medical issues with students in order to deliver a lesson. Like I asked, have you abused drugs and alcohol? And if they have, I already know that we're going to have some cognitive problems, because the retention isn't there.
Right.
And like you're saying, Debbie, we have to teach things over and over again. And one of the things I find why we have to teach things over and over again is because most of these adults don't write things down.
Right.
They think they can remember everything. You can't remember everything. It doesn't make a difference if you've been on drugs or not. At a certain age, it's natural to start forgetting things. And so, therefore, I have to teach these adults, start writing things down. You can't always remember everything. But, Debbie, I know as the years have evolved, some of the same things are happening in the school system. Never blaming. This is not a blame game. As far as what the schools aren't doing, as far as what parents aren't doing, this conversation is about what you should be doing now as an adult. So what are some of the new changes or the new things that you're seeing with adults coming to you now?
As a parent, they're getting interested in what they can do to help their children. And I always tell them, look at your school. See what type of programs they have. Maybe if a parent doesn't want to become a student themselves to be tutored, have them encourage that person to say, okay, why don't you look at your school and see if there's a tutoring program for children?
Okay.
And encourage them to get more active in the school. And I've seen quite a few of that. A lot of the schools now have different programs.
Now go back. Are you saying programs for kids or program for the adult?
For kids.
Okay.
But it also, there are some that I even have some that are for the parent and the child together.
Family literacy programs.
Family literacy. Even Start is one of them that's been around for years. Not all the schools offer that, but quite a few of them are getting more and more involved. The Genesee County Literacy Coalition has some schools that are interested in providing a parent component.
Tell us a little bit about that Genesee County Literacy Coalition.
Genesee County Literacy Coalition has been around since 1978. I've been a part of the Genesee County Literacy Coalition since 1989, forever. Right now I'm the president of the board.
Okay.
And what we do is, it's a group of organizations that come together and we train tutors, volunteer tutors. And then they're able to go back into the community and pick a site where they can actually go in and help people with learning.
Okay.
Some of the schools are getting more involved with that because now the schools are realizing that the parent needs to be educated.
I had a conversation with a bank. They came to see me, and I said something to her that really shocked her. And that's not the first time I had a conversation with someone. And the thing is, I said, is why are you always giving money to the schools, to the youth programs? I said, the funding has been cut for adult education. I said, why don't you fund adult education programs? They said, well, the kids need it. I said, you're not understanding. The kids are only as successful as their parents. And I said, let me explain something to you. If the parent don't know how to read and write, how can they help the child when they come home?
You're right.
If the parent is not interested in learning, how would they encourage the child to learn at home? I said, even though the child goes to school, once the child is around the parent and the family, that is the role model. That is the environment that's really teaching them how to become an adult, or what is expected of them as an adult. And those parents are modeling for those children. And so therefore, if you put money in adult education programs, the chances of those kids being more successful in school is greater. And so I talked to another organization, and I said, well, look, if the parents don't like hockey, then those kids aren't going to go to a hockey game. If those parents don't have transportation to get those kids to a hockey game because they don't have an education, don't have a job, then those kids aren't going. It's not wrong to say invest in our youth, but we have to invest in the parents as well. And we keep talking about this family literacy. We keep talking about this this family unit or this circle, but again, they continue not to fund adult education programs and keep dumping money into K through 12, but we keep getting more and more and more adults, well, I shouldn't say where they become adults by the time we meet them, who haven't completed K through 12.
Right, because they didn't have, that's what I said before, the parent is the first line.
There you go. It's the first teacher.
The first teacher, and if that parent is not educated, then the children are, chances are not going to do well. If that parent, the grandparent, is not educated.
Generational.
It's a generational thing.
It's a generational.
And somewhere, somebody has to stand up and say, we need to stop that cycle.
There you go. Break that chain.
And the only way to stop that cycle is to get the parents involved in education.
You know, Debbie, I knew our time was going to run out for this subject. And I know I talked to you prior about carrying this on, but I think this is going to be a part 3 opposed to the part 2 that we previously talked about, because this is something, you know, we do have the water issues here, but we have other problems that are going on in the city of Flint, and literacy is one of those. You can't not read and write and think jobs are going to just fall out of the sky, because what's going to happen is the jobs are going to come here, but it's going to bring the qualified people who do not live in the city of Flint. They're going to take the money and the revenue out of the city, and it's the same vicious cycle again. The residents who are not educated will not get the jobs.
And the people who are not educated, if they do get a job, it's going to be a very low-paying job.
Very much so.
And
nothing to raise your families on. So, what did you think about today's show, Al?
Oh, the show is fantastic.
All righty.
Learned a lot.
Very much so. Listeners, hopefully you would join us on next Wednesday as we have another wonderful guest. Again, thank you so very much, and have a great work week.
For the past 30 minutes, you've been listening to Chia Use of Knowledge is Power broadcast with your host, Dr. Marseille Wells-Strozier. You can contact Chia Adult Skills Center at 810-553-2140 or online at www.mychea.org. Join them again next week at the same time, right here on the best variety of gospel music, the new 1420 AM WFLT. If anyone should ever ask what radio station